I'm also known as the DreamStitcher. I've been sewing professionally costumes for over 40 years. I'm also notorious for throwing horribly complicated party moves. But I started out genetically. Grandma sewed, Mom sewed, I sewed. Doing your Barbie dolls at the age of 7 and sewing from there. And like I said, I started professionally in 1980. When I moved up to the Twin Cities, I joined the SCA, a medieval reenactment group. And people were looking at me like, well, Rae knows how to sew, and she's got a bachelor's degree in theater, and she's studied all those quarters and quarters of costume history. Hey, can you sew this for me? And I started sewing for friends. And friends of friends, and friends of friends, and all of a sudden I have a business. And I'm cursing my bachelor's degree for not giving me any sort of business courses whatsoever. So I kind of backed into all of this. But that's how I started, with historical reenactment in reproduction. And I've done work for the Minnesota Historical Society, Fort Snelling, Pine City Fur Post, the Science Museum, Minnesota. I've done lectures and demonstrations on the history of costuming for a number of groups. The favorite is an overview of underwear, a brief history. But it really, a brief history. It really stood me in good help, because it gave me an understanding of the basics of clothing. And even though sci-fi fantasy anime is way out there, it's still clothing, and you still have basic patterns. Another thing I did was take a pattern drafting course at MCTC, and that kicked up my sewing levels and my creativity levels several times over. Because you weren't bound to the simplicity pattern, and pick that up and maybe try to alter it a little bit to make it look like Star Wars Princess Leia or something like that. And when I started in the Dark Ages, before VHS, before DVDs, before all those lovely behind the scenes, how they did that sort of appendices to the movies, when I wanted to reproduce a costume, I had to pull out all the art books. Listen, boom, boom, boom. I had to pull out all the art books in the library. I bought all the Starlog magazines, ripped the cover off a TV guide. My reference book for Star Trek alone was a 3-binder folder about this big. Swatches of them, trading cards. I would buy publicity shots in the dealer's room. And I would go to the movies and bug the hell out of my friends, going, shut up, Ray, just shut up. Because I'd be yelling at the screen, turn around, damn it, just turn around, damn it. Which is the hardest part of any costume to reproduce if you're doing it from screenshots. Because they never turn around.
And they certainly don't screenshot the back.
No, they don't. They do publicity shots mostly. And they're starting to get what they call production shots, which is a picture of the costume front, sideways, back in actual regular lighting rather than the mood lighting during the film, because you can't see any details that way. Lovely gown, she's in shadow, or it's raining, or it's night, or whatever, you can't see that. So, you guys, to put it bluntly, you guys have it a lot easier than I did back then. And you have so much more fun stuff to play with. EL wire, lighted fabrics, Wordplug, Wonderflex, all this fun stuff. If I wanted to do armor, I had to make it out of cardboard. Or if I wanted a helmet, I had paper mache, that sort of thing. So I am constantly learning new stuff, because there's new stuff coming out there to play with. And it's just fun. There's a whole lot more you can do with these days. And the internet, oh my God, the internet. You can get anything. You know, if I wanted to do Aragorn's sword, I had to find somebody I knew who did woodworking, or, you know, maybe Bondo and car filler or something like that, you know, all the horrible things to work with. But anyway, let me think what else you might need to know before. We'll get started on this then. These are all the things that over 40 years of sewing has taught me not to do. Or, oh yeah, I did this and that didn't work. So I'm trying to impart a little bit of wisdom so you don't go through the same mistakes I did. When you're starting a project, your selection of your project, what level of proficiency are you at? I.e., what level of frustration is this going to create when you're working on this? You know, right off the bat, don't tackle something horribly complicated, because one, you know, you're not quite sure of how it's going to work, and two, you get so frustrated it ends up in the garbage. That's happened more than once, believe me, with me. The amount of time that you have. Again, way back in the dark ages when there was the one convention, mini-con, in the Twin Cities. Once a year, Easter weekend, you had an entire year to work on your costume, an entire year to save up and shop and look for things. Now there's like a convention every weekend. And I had 6 costumes due for CONvergence in the last 3 months. I managed to do 5 of them. The 6th one is still in pieces on my cutting table in my sewing dungeon. And that one is mine. But okay, I can do that somewhere else. So, to kind of point out a little bit, if you saw the Megan doll dance in the masquerade, that was mine. Laura Thurston's Klingon was mine. We did the Star Wars Rae Doctor Who mashup. We did both the Duchess and Captain Bombardier, so that was 5. And for each project, I give myself at least 3 months. But then I've done this a lot, so things are programmed into the fingers by now. First time I ever did a historical reenactment, 1800 shirt, it took me weeks. I can pull one out in 2.5 hours now, once I have the fabric. But that's because I do it and do it and do it and do it, which is the only way you get good. You just keep at it. Oh, I can't get any good, I'm gonna throw it away. No. Okay, you made a mistake this time, do it again. Try it again. You know, it's not gonna hurt anything if you start over. Also, pattern availability. It used to be, again, that there were no patterns out there for any of these things. The first commercial sci-fi pattern ever was the Monster Maroons from Star Trek, the movie uniforms. And I ordered one of those, and the person who created that didn't know anything about sewing. I struggled with that pattern for a month and threw it out and did my own. But now there are some fairly good, especially the historical reenactment. And so much of the sci-fi, fantasy, anime costumes are based on the historical. I do a lecture on the historical basis of the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit costumes. You look at the dwarves, they're Anglo-Saxon Viking. The French, the elves are 12th century French bouillons. Gondor is 14th century Italian and French Renaissance, as is the city of Dale. You look at the hobbits, and they're mid-1800s Old English country. The kicker is the dwarves, who have the simplest costumes in the beginning, you peel them down and get them out of their barrels and their underwear. Those are 1890 Union suit long johns. And Babylon 5, we could do the same thing. Earth Force uniforms in 1950s Eisenhower's. The Minbari are 1790s Prussian, Austrian, Prussian, Hungarian, and like that. So you can find resources. If there's a costume, like even anime, especially anime, 14th century medieval Japan, but most of their costumes are based a lot on that. So If you go the historical, you start with historical route, there's some really good resources. One is the Rural Pennsylvania Clothing, and that's perfect for the Hobbit costumes and a lot of peasant or older Renaissance. Janet Arnold, Nora Waugh, if you want to get a little more complicated into, Marie Antoinette style dresses. Patterns of History is another one. I can give you these references later too. But the information is out there, and with the internet, it is so easy to find. The research, the art books. Oh, I love the art books. Magna Carta art books, or The Art of Dune, or anything like that. Way back when VHS was invented, and I'm buying tapes like crazy. I think I'm the only person in the world who wore out their rewind button in their VHS machine. Oh, pause. And when DVDs came out, sharp pictures, back information, you could pause it and just study that picture. It was great. Let's see. When you are studying things online, electronically, visually, there's one thing you have to keep in mind is the color balance. Your color monitor is not the same as somebody else's color monitor. It's not the same as the business that's putting up patterns in fabric. Because more than once I bought something online, lovely blue. It came, delivered, it was green, or something like that. That's why, yes, there's lots of fabrics out there, but the best thing to do when you're looking for your resources is go touch it. And thank goodness for S.R. Harris. That's where all of his costumes, the Guthrie Theater shops at S.R. Harris, But I'd be out of business without that place. It's the only fabric warehouse between Chicago and Winnipeg, to speak of, that has anything as far as a good selection of stuff. Let's see. Oh, the color. Back a moment. The color balance and perception and stuff. If you look at the original Star Trek, and on screen, Captain Kirk's shirt looks gold. In production pictures, where they're having shots of what this costume looks like, whatever, it's olive green. But the lighting in the story, in the film itself, makes such a difference. A lot of times, most of the sets on the original Star Trek were just plain either gray or white, and it was the lighting that changed the mood and changed the location. Same set, but it made it look something different, because the lighting makes such a difference.
And you can tell that it's green because all of his other costumes are green, and that one specifically is gold.
Mm-hmm. Okay, in buying patterns online, remember there may be standard sizes, right? There's no such thing as a standard size person at all. Best thing I do, even with my own costumes still, is take whatever pattern you have, take scrap fabric, crap fabric, and cut out the pattern in the crappy fabric and baste it together and have somebody try it on you. Don't try to fit yourself. It's just impossible to get it back here or to, back here. So have somebody help you fit the pattern, and then you can kind of tweak it in here or correct the shoulder slope or the length or whatever. Cut the pattern out with crap fabric, tweak it, adjust it, take it totally apart, and then use that as your pattern. And, well, I can't afford to buy $8, $10, $12 muslin like they do in hot couture places. Go buy old sheets at a garage sale. Just make sure they're not very stretchy, but usually they're shrunk so that it's not going to stretch much. Yes?
Someone in a panel the other day recommended using landscape fabric from the hardware store because it's really cheap and it moves like fabric, so you can trace your pattern pieces onto that and then actually pin it together and make it into the outfit.
Now, did they say how much per yard that would cost?
They did, and I don't remember.
That was me. It was about, it was like $2,600 huge amount, something like, it might have been like 100-yard roll.
Mhm.
I mean, just enormous. It comes out to about 20 cents a yard.
Yeah,
Dang.
which is why I go to garage sales and buy old sheets, because I can get an entire sheet for a quarter. And you know, that's 4, 5, 6, 8 yards of fabric for practically nothing. But there are cheap places to buy that. And like I said, rather than the $12 a yard Joanne Fabric is charging, which is obscene. Also, when you are fitting your pattern and it's on your body and you're adjusting, wear the underwear that you're going to have. If you're going to have a corset underneath, or you want shoulder pads for military, or you want a chest binder, or you want a chest enhancer, wear that before you put the pattern on. I have a little horror story. I had 4 girls come in. They had bought their bridesmaid dresses, but they needed to be slightly adjusted. They had long train, and we'd cut some of the train off because it was too long. And they left, a couple weeks before the wedding, and everything fit fine. We tweaked it here and we tweaked it there, and they looked really good. An hour before the wedding, I got a panicky call. Rae, my dress doesn't fit. I can't get it up. I can't get the zipper up. What's going on? Okay, it fit fine when you left. What happened? Grab the sewing machine, the sewing tools and stuff, take the bus downtown, run up there. She was kind of a big girl, like 54 inches, and she forgot to bring her bra. That entire 54 inches dropped about 3 inches, so now it's tight around here. So thankfully I had brought some of the scraps of the fabric train. Took it up, put gussets in the sides and sewed it back up and got her on, essentially on stage with 5 minutes to spare. But that will happen if and even the different kinds of bras or the chest protectors or whatever. Sometimes your bust line is up here, sometimes it's up here, sometimes it's down there. So whenever you have a fitting, consistently wear the same underwear. Especially like if you're wearing Spanx and you're doing a superhero outfit. Oh, this fitting, I forgot to wear my Spanx. Well, guess what? It just added 2 inches to your back. So you want to be consistent in that.
Is that relative to if you're doing layering too? Like if you have different layers?
Kind of, yeah. Because it depends a lot on what kind of bulky material you're wearing too. If you're doing something fairly snug, and the first couple layers are fat, are thick materials, that third over layer is going to have to be just a little bit bigger to be able to get you to move. Once you've established your pattern, then you can lay it out and go, okay, I'm going to put some trim here, so I need to measure here, I need to measure here. You can determine how much fabric you're going to need, how much trim. I'm going to need a zipper here, I'm going to need buttons there. You can establish your shopping list once you have determined, I need X amount of fabric to do this costume. Yeah.
This is a little bit off topic, but I thought maybe some folks here might have a good resource for corsets. Because
Heather Luca. She is local, Scoundrels Keep. And I can do corsets. She can do them so much better. There's a lot of, I'll get to some of the corseting and stuff tools later, but there are a lot of good resources online for that sort of thing. Again, way back when I had to make my own sort of thing.
another good one is Fiona's Spiners.
Is what?
Fiona's Spiners.
Okay. Once we're done with this, we can kind of talk. Okay, materials. There's a lot of fun stuff out there to play with. You can't wash it. A lot of synthetics and metallics and all that sort of thing. And spandex and latex and all those lovely things, and you sweat like crazy in them. There's no breathing. It's even leather itself. You get too hot. If there's any way to reproduce the look in a natural material, go for it. Natural materials, wool, cotton, silk, linen. You can get into the esoteric alpaca and llama and rabbit, you know, and stuff like that. But the four basic ones that you can wash, and yes, you can wash silk and you can wash wool, just carefully, but they breathe, they wick the perspiration out and cool you off. Oh, I don't want to wear wool, that's so hot. Well, you make the costume in polyester, you're going to be just as hot and a whole lot more sweaty. My husband and I have both worked out at Fort Snelling, and the soldier uniforms are 100% wool. Okay, you're standing at the front gate all day long in the heat. You're going to get hot, you're going to start sweating, but at a certain point, it's going to wick into the wool and that air is going to breathe it away, and you're a lot cooler than most of the tourists who are wearing these polyester t-shirts or whatever. So if at all possible, wear the natural fibers and line. I shouldn't line it because it's even hotter. One thing a lining is like a protection, or like a slip or a shirt or something. This helps keep your body sweat and everything away from the costume, so your body is not damaging the costume. So linings are your friend.
Sorry, what were the natural ones?
Wool, silk, linen, and cotton. Interestingly enough, in the early days of the U.S. colonies, cotton production was very low because you manually had to pick out all those seeds. And cotton plantations almost died out because thistles, no kidding, thistles made a fabric. It very much like flax plant and thistle plants, you plucked, you threw them into water and let them rot out, and the strands would kind of separate, and then you would process them by spinning, carding, spinning, and stuff like that. There's a neat little grain of truth in a Dictionaries and Fairy Tale, the princess with her 13 brothers who were turned into swans, and the only way she could break the spell was to go out and pluck thistles and make shirts out of them. How do you make shirts out of a thistle? But when I was studying flax production, they also mentioned thistle production was very much similar. And yeah, they actually did make clothing out of thistles back then. The thing that saved the cotton industry was the invention of the cotton gin. And those mechanical fingers would start pulling the seeds out, and whoa, all of a sudden cotton. Not until the late 1700s, early 1800s is cotton really cheap. So if you were making a 14th to 15th century clothing out of cotton, you must have been fairly rich. Silk was and still is, rich clothing. If you wanted to be poor, if you want to reproduce a poor person from the Middle Ages or early ages, you use cotton, you use wool and linen. And nowadays, what's the most expensive stuff? Wool and linen. Yeah, question?
Specifically for lining, do you recommend then cotton, or is there a specific fabric to them that
I always recommend a cotton or a linen for a lining because they're very absorbent and they're pretty sturdy. So it's hard. A lot of linings are a rayon, and rayon is kind of a natural fabric. It's wood pulp. So it was like the first transitional artificial fiber between, cotton and nylon synthetics and stuff. Rayon is more absorbent than the other artificial synthetics. But that's a good one. And I will get into why you frequently want to use shiny, slippery fabrics as lining. Question?
Would you recommend the the same thing for things that would be traditionally like stretchy, like things like a
Oh.
bodysuit?
Okay, I'm kind of hard of hearing, so.
Oh, it's okay.
And I did mention if you feel comfortable taking your mask off, go ahead, because I can hear you and see you better, and I'm vaxxed and boosted and the whole bit, so.
Yeah. Would you recommend still using things like cotton and linen for pieces that would be traditionally done in like really stretchy materials? Things like bodysuits and stuff like that?
No, the bodysuits, the cat suits, the superheroes, there's pretty much, you have to use the synthetic spandex, latex, stretchy stuff. Because you can get knit cottons, and you could do that. Well, look at Spider-Man, his first few outfits were a stretchy cotton. You know, it was kind of a cute little pathetic attempt at a superhero suit, but yeah, you can do those if you want to. I'm just saying that you will be a lot more comfortable in natural fibers. This said, I have a real grudge against Joann Fabric. I walked in about a month or two ago. I was looking for some wool and some silk. She said, oh, we don't carry those anymore.
What?
At all. It's not cost effective. Pretty much all they have is either quilters cottons, rows and rows of fleece, which is polyester, and it makes me shudder. Ugh. I can't stand that. But, or the high-end Yaya cosplay stuff, or the glittery or whatever. Not a whole lot. You know, they haven't carried real 100% honest to goodness linen. It's all linen look. Yeah. But they don't have linen, they don't have silk, they don't have wool anymore, which really cuts your options down, and which is really why I'm so glad SR. There's Yada Goods, and there's Bell Fabrics, and a few smaller shops and stuff which carry that. But the biggies, you know, and Michael's, of course, has lots of crafty stuff. They don't carry fabrics at all. So anyway, you get into the cost. You go, oh my God, I'm gonna buy wool, and this is gonna be really expensive. You can do substitutions. If you know, you're not going for a 501st or some of these other fan organizations that are really strict about standards and stuff. You can do substitutes. Okay, I can't afford wool, which can be kind of expensive. Cotton flannel, from about a foot away, it looks just about the same. You get that nubbly feel to it, and it's a lot cheaper, and it's a lot less hot. You can use rayons for its silks, the same flow of fabric, the same soft, slippery surfaces. Use cheap fabric on places that won't be seen. You look at a gentleman's three-piece suit. Every vest has synthetic, or you know, like a rayon silky back to it, even though the front might be this really, you know, high-end, lovely wool pattern. The back is a slippy fabric. Why? Because one, it's easier to put your coat on if it's slippery, and two, a gentleman never takes his coat off in public. So nobody's going to see that. So I'm not going to waste the money on, you know, on putting expensive fabric back there. Question?
Yeah. So on the subject of using cheaper fabrics for patterning, right? You said using like a cheaper fabric to do that. Do these same substitutes work in that like they'll stretch in the same way, so that like if you pattern with a cotton flannel for something that's going to be
when you pattern with a fabric that won't stretch, because you'll have if you pattern with a fabric that does stretch, you'll have the tendency to stretch it a little bit to make it fit, and then when you cut it out of the real stuff, it doesn't fit enough. Use a non-stretchy fabric whenever you're doing your patterns. Because what you want is to cut that pattern piece out of the stretch so that it lays flat, just like the cotton pattern piece did. But when you're moving, it will stretch with you. do not stretch your fabrics while you're making the pattern, because then it will come out too small. So use a non-stretch for making your pattern pieces. Because what you want your fabric to do is just lay quietly and behave itself and lay nice and flat and smooth on your body. The stretch comes in when you're moving. Let's see. Synthetics are cheaper, but they're less sturdy. How many times have you used like a rayon, satin, lining, or whatever, and it shreds? Especially. It also melts at lower temperatures, so you have to be a lot more careful with your steam iron. I had one client who we did a lovely synthetic harem dress, see-through glittery fabric, and she was gonna iron it and promptly burned a hole, just melted it right through. Oh no. Shopping online versus the store, we covered that a little bit. You feel it. You hold it up and you can see how well it drapes. How heavy is it? Some fabrics, especially like shot fabrics, are one type of thread, one way, one color, a different color, or fabric the other way, fiber the other way. So it moves and it shimmers. But you don't see that when it's online. So always, if you possibly can, go buy your fabric and feel it first. Cutting, when you're cutting, and when you're shopping, there's something called a nap. If people know what that is, like a velvet. You can pet it and it's nice and smooth one way, and you do it the other way, and it's like petting a cat the wrong way. And there's patterns in it. So, like corduroy, like velvet, like velveteens. You have to take that into account. Also the sheen on like rayons and satins and metallics. It looked like this one way, but if you cut one pattern piece this way and one pattern piece this way, when you put them together, they're not going to match. So you have to be very careful to make sure that you're cutting all your pattern pieces, the top down this way, not this way, this way, this way, this way, and this way. For one, especially if you're matching up pattern pieces, you want to make sure that all your patterns are directionally the same way. Plans, of course, are going to drive you crazy. Yes?
I would just suggest if you're using velvet, find out the direction of the nap and set it so that the nap is pointing up, because gravity will pull it open, even on that short of a fiber, and it makes it look richer.
Good point, yeah. There is such a difference in the texture. The directions of plaids and stripes and patterns. Start your pattern matching. Hold on a second. Oh, okay. Where am I going to? I have jumped over a little bit here. Start passing things out. This is with the materials. Once you've figured out how much yardage you have, you want to make sure to take into account, like I said, the frame part. Because once you're working with it or once you're washing it, the edges will start to, and you can lose up to like an inch or so. And if, this is all the fabric I've got, and I got to be very conservative with it. Stay stitch it. If you don't want it to fray as you're working, we're passing an example of stay stitching. It's just like a little stitch. If you want to get modern to it, you can put fray check on it or something, but then when you're sewing that, it gums up your needle. Let's see. The substitutions. Another one, I've got black theater drape that I bought off of a theater going out of business. This is lovely. This looks just like a wool uniform. Here's examples of the cutting of the nap, one way or the other. Send those around. Okay, pattern matching. There's some examples here of, you can be very careful. Start your pattern matching here. You cut out your materials. Okay, I've got 2 pattern pieces. And I don't want to cut them like this. I want to cut one out and then turn it in reverse so that it matches the other one. So my directions and this way are the same. So always cut, if you're trying to very carefully match pattern, the patterns within the fabric, the design, cut one piece out first and then adjust it a little bit and cut the other piece out. Okay, and always, always, always buy more fabric than is called for. 2 o'clock in the morning, you go, oops, I shouldn't have cut that piece, and you can't go run to the store and get more. So yes, give okay, it's gonna cost me, give yourself another yard at least, so you avoid all that panic. Because I have had that happen so often, oops, wrong, or it would have folded underneath while I'm cutting it, and I cut right through the middle of it, or something like that.
What do you have to say to, like, piecing is period in those situations?
Piecing is very, very period, and go for it. I've done that a lot. There's an interesting pattern piece that I read, something called a pourpoint, Charles LeBlanc pourpoint in the 1300s, and there was a pattern for it in Blanche painting costume books. So, okay, I want to reproduce this. Lovely pattern piece, and I studied the evolution of pattern, and in that pattern, there was this little piece here on the shoulder, and there was this little wedge underneath, because they had taken it apart and drafted the pattern pieces and all that. Now, why did they include that? Because I've never seen that particular piece of a pattern before or after. The only conclusion I could come with, the guy got fat, and you just took it apart, pieced it together, put on some more. There was a 1820s dress that I pictured in. I can't remember if it's Blanche, but no, it's Kyoto Institute had a picture of a lovely 1820s dress, and there's like 2 smaller pattern pieces and then the 2 big ones for the center back. And this pattern piece right here, the pattern was, the printing was turned this way. And I thought, why did they do that? Because that's all the material they had. And you have to squeeze in what you can, so that pattern, that particular print went this way rather than that way, simply because that's what you had to do. So piecing, yes. Piecing, especially in historical reenactment, is very, very period. That said, buy yourself some extra fabric, save yourself the panic. Okay, process of washing material. Question.
Do you guys have any recommendations for potential fabric stores around the area?
Well, like we said, S.R. Harris is like the place.
And then what is it around here?
Huh? Yeah, that's Park, Brooklyn Center.
There's a car for,
Savage
Yeah.
There's a car for S.R. Harris up on the 3D table right next to Ops, with the bridge. There's a card on one of those 3D tables that has the hours, both of the locations, and the website and phone numbers.
Oh, no. The south one, which is what, Burnsville Savage area, it's more like an actual Joann's, a lot less selection, smaller store, has notions and whatnot, and it's higher end priced stuff. Go to the one in Brooklyn Center? Brooklyn Park. Okay, you take this room, multiply it by like about 20, and have stacks of fabric going up 20 feet high.
Higher ceilings too.
Yeah, you can find just about anything. It's a warehouse. I've been going there for 40 years. I still go and go, oh wow, this stuff. Yes.
Rockford Supply, also in Brooklyn Center, is a good place. They sell primarily upholstery fabric,
Mhm.
but a lot of lightweight upholstery fabric makes nice.
Oh, great Renaissance stuff.
What was that name?
Yeah, Rockford Supply, ROCHFORD.
Rockford?
And yeah, drapery and upholstery fabric, which S.R. Harris has a lot of, is great for medieval and Renaissance festivals. Just avoid the stuff that's coated on the back with, plastic. I've done one or two by mistake, and oh God, I'm dying in here.
And
Question.
never similarly.
I was gonna say, if people are getting ahead and can catch it, the textile center garage sale is excellent.
Oh yes, Textile Center, man, can you score?
Yeah.
That's some really cheapy stuff, but some really good, somebody's cleaning out Aunt Mabel's sewing room and they don't want it. They have no idea what they got.
Our chocolate fabric is a giant fold, I think we bought for $5.
Oh yeah. Well, what's neat about SR, you can buy wool for under $10 a yard. Yeah, they have some of the high end, $50 a yard, but under $10 a yard. You can buy actual, honest to goodness, real silk, real linen, which you cannot find anywhere else in the Twin Cities.
Where is this?
SR Harris, Brooklyn Park. Question?
There's also an S.R. Harris now down in Savage.
Yeah, that's the one we just mentioned. That's,
I found that they have like this display of leather scraps or leather that's pre-cut, super expensive. If you go to the very back corner, there's a giant bin of leather scraps.
and SR in North has like 6 bins of the leather scrap. And SR has just about everything. Side note story here. Years ago, I was commissioned by an advertising agency to put a wolf in sheep's clothing. They called me on Friday, called me back on Saturday. Of course, they want this by Wednesday. Their first ad was a group of sheep with one red sheep in the middle, stand out from the crowd. Well, they kind of thought that was a little namby-pamby, so let's have a wolf coming out of sheep's clothing. We're vigorous, we're, muscular sort of advertising agency. Well, that was Saturday. They bring the stand-in German Shepherd dog on Sunday, take all the measurements, make the pattern, comes back to my place on Monday, we fit the pattern. Monday night I go to SR. And curly red fake wool, how hard would that be? Nothing, absolutely nothing. I'm panicking, I'm like, my God, what am I gonna make this out of? For the one and only time in the entire time I've ever shopped at SR that had, honest to goodness, real sheepskins. So I picked up 14 of them, sewed them all together, tried it on the dog the next day, dyed it that Monday night, and the dog and the trainer picked me up the next day. And it's still a little damp, because you can't, I dyed it, but you can't throw that in the dryer. And we went and photographed it for that poor dog in this sheepskin costume, the little booties, the head piece, the ears, had a zipper down the back. They wanted to zipper down the front, and I'm going, dogs don't fold that way. So you had to put it down the back. So they photographed him sitting, standing this way, that way, the whole bit. And that poor dog's under the hot lights for hours. So every so often we'd unzip him, open it up to cool him off, and he'd jump out of it. And here's me and the trainer trying to get this damn dog back, and he doesn't want to go. And the next day they brought in the wolves from Ely Nature Center and photographed them in the same positions, at least tried to, and then combined them. And they have a wolf coming out of that sheepskin. But that's the one and only time I couldn't find what I wanted at SR. And still managed to do that. Okay, let's get to processing of your materials. Now that you've found what you wanted, wash it if at all possible. Granted, the metallics you can't, but those are the ones that aren't really going to shrink unless you go after them with an iron. It's always better to wash your fabric first and see how much it will shrink, how much it will fade. A lot of fabrics have so much chemical in there. Anti-wrinkle chemicals, anti-rodent, anti-insect chemicals in there. So if you're not washing all of that out and you're steam ironing your fabric, you're inhaling formaldehyde, you're inhaling PVCs, you're inhaling all sorts of nasty chemicals. So wash, wash, wash. And it will change the texture because a lot of fabrics have fulling, which is like spray starch in it to make it sturdier, to make it, you know, to stand up and look really good. And the first time you wash that, that's all gonna go right out. And it'll change the texture and the feel and the drape of your fabric. So wash it before you cut it, before you start processing. Let's see, here we go. Here's some examples of washing it first and what happened. You know, some of your fabrics will bleed, yes, they say, oh, wash in cold water. No, it still will bleed. Red is horrible notoriously for bleeding. So you wash your lights, you wash your darks separately. And again, colors will fade. So when you do wash, warm to cold water, not hot. Yes.
When you're washing and like working with things that shrink, but you're never gonna wash it with hot water, are you still just washing it how you would wash it once it's a garment?
If it's, if it's like you're washing it a regular garment or so, just wash it. If they, recommend cold, recommend warm. I always like to do the first time wash in warm to get rid of a lot of these chemicals. And the fulling and sizing and stuff like that. And then afterward, just go ahead and wash cold. Chemically, laundry detergent is very good at doing a lot of what hot water used to do. And again, of course, don't wash your wools in hot water. You can wash wools like Luddite in cold water in a very gentle cycle, because how many have done hot water and one trick for using that for your advantage, if you have a medium weight wool and you want a thick coat out of it, throw it in the washer in hot water and agitation, and it will thicken up. There's very little in the way of heavy coat weight or heavy cloak and cape weight. If you want a lovely cloak for Renfest, there's not a lot of coat weight wool out there, especially not in the colors that you want. So that's a good trick where hot water and a heavy agitation will work to your advantage. Otherwise, don't do it. Rinse, sweat, dyeing. Boiling water over the stove is one of the best ways to do it, but you can't. I do most of my dyeing in my washing machine. Trick is, do a load of wash first. Give your hot water heater 15 minutes to regenerate, and you get hotter water for your actual dye bath. And I will reset and reset and reset, a 20-minute agitation run. I'll reset it for 20 minutes, and then I occasionally take a tea kettle of boiling water and pour it in to keep the heat going. Rinse it well. Rinse in cold water after you're done dyeing, several times. And then after you do that, make sure you wash your machine in water and bleach with nothing in it, because there are little flecks of dye that will stay there and turn your underwear pink afterward. Drying, high to medium heat for, to medium heat for cottons and for linens. Low heat for silks and synthetics. Hang drying is good, although if you hang anything knit, it's gonna droop. It's gonna droop. So knitted things you kind of want to lay out on a towel and just pat it into shape and let it dry that way.
You can actually get they're advertised for plant drying, leaf drying, for herbs, but you can use them for clothing to hang sweaters on, and hang them up, and it's just like a mesh thing. And then it folds flat to go away.
That's a good idea, yeah.
I have dried knits sometimes by folding them at the waist over a hanger. I live in a tiny space, I don't have to lay anything.
To lay everything out, but yeah.
But if I put
You
it
know,
up.
'cause that's the one danger with knits and stuff, that they will tend to stretch a little bit. Like I said, felting, which is what the agitation in hot water in your washing machine is. It's thickening up the fabric. Like I said, really good for cloaks. Fulling is slightly different. It's the spray starch that you put into something to make your fabric a little bit thicker. Okay, sewing machines, yay! All these lovely electronic things that have 100 different embroidery stitches and can do everything but, you know, just do your dishes. 98% of what you're doing is forward, back, zigzag, line stitch, hem, and buttonholes. You don't need something, you know, I'm not going to put little yellow duckies on everything. I don't need that kind of machine. I am still using 1975 Kenmore, and it's a workhorse. I've actually dropped the damn thing, and the one problem with using older machines that it is harder to find people to repair them when they do need it, but there are some good ones around town.
Where do you go to repair or maintain your machines?
Oh, it was called A1. And I don't repair and maintain my machines nearly as often as I should, because the problem with me is that I will run it into the ground and it dies at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I go out and buy another machine. Simply because, no kidding, it's cheaper than getting them repaired. I had one machine I bought, Kenmore, bought from Sears. I took it back to the Sears at the Mall of America. Oh, we don't take them here, you have to go to the service center in Eden Prairie. So I did that. Oh, we have to send it out to get repaired to Illinois. I got that machine back a month and a half later and it still didn't work. In the meantime, I went out and got a cheapy singer, you know, just to get the project done. Yes, question?
I was gonna say my uncle is the bobbin doctor who does sewing machine repair work as his business. He only.
Can you take your mask off? I'm kind of hard in hearing, and you know, for people who want to take your mask off, please feel free.
He only does mechanical machines though, so he will not touch electric.
I want his number. No.
He's also like retired, so it was waiting.
I know, all the good machine, the places I've taken my machines to are all retired now. But no, you're leaving me. No kidding, I have a graveyard of about 12 machines in the basement that, well, people would give me machines and they could use good cleaning and tune up and all that, and I've never gotten around to it, so that's it.
Well, 2 things. One, if they're mechanical, I'm sure that the metal recyclers would love to have them. But if they're mechanical, I'm sure the metal recyclers would love to have them. But my question is, where do you find cases for the older machines, or just a general machine? Where do you find the case without the machine?
Oh, interesting. You know, a lot of these repair places also have like stock. And you try those repair places and they probably have, because I know I have seen just cases sitting on their shelves, so that's a good idea. Question there.
Another thought on repairs, Hennepin County has a fix-it clinic that they do on a regular basis, and that's where a lot of the retired tinkerers are, and sometimes they can fix stuff for you.
Good suggestion.
Those are free.
Mm-hmm.
St. Paul does as well.
Yes, question here.
I got a question not just for Rae, but for everybody. I've got a 55-ish-year-old Viking Husqvarna 2000. And I've got a newer Viking Husqvarna because my daughter didn't want to use grandma's sewing machine.
What?
I can't control my kids. Okay. So she's got 2 great sewing machines in her, but she's not here. She's in Sweden, and I need to get something going for my son. Not all YouTube videos are created equal. Okay? does anybody have a good suggestion for me, or one episode, or a series of 10 episodes to watch, so that I can learn how to use the wonderful machines, but I
Talk to these people, I'm a Luddite. I will watch some of these things. The problem is they don't teach sewing in school anymore.
It's not just sewing in general, it's sewing on this machine.
This is like an A101 kind of thing, but if you have your manual, cherish it. I was breaking threads every 3 stitches. I referred to my manual and I figured out what I was doing wrong.
If you can find that manual online.
A lot of them are.
If you take that name and like the type, the make and model.
The make and model number.
You into Google and say, I just need the manual. And you will probably find it.
Good suggestion, yes. And for most of us who seem to be of like mind, that the pre-1980 machines are better. After 80, it was plastic. And, the Singer name, the Kenmore name, those names, they all went to Asia. Same name, different manufacturers, and the quality just went. Like I said, I've dropped my good old Kenmore on its head and it still worked. I dropped some other and they just split into plastic splinters. Green back there.
Yeah, so if you do manage to find an older machine, how is it more difficult to find parts?
That is one problem. On the other, I find a machine. First thing we do is take it to a repair place and have them clean it and tune it. Because we all know what tensions are on a machine. And when they go out, they really wreck up everything. So it's good to, and I should do a tune-up every 6 months to a year if you use it as much as I do. Question back there.
How about needles though?
What?
Are they the same needles?
Yeah. I just wanted to share a 2-second horror story about old sewing machines.
Oh.
My grandmother left me her old one that was built into a table, foot pedal and everything. My mother threw it away because she said it's too old to use.
Oh! And we're all flinching here.
It was left to me and she threw it away.
Oh.
I'm in sadness.
Oh, blue over here?
So I have like a 1969 Kenmore. It has an LED light bulb and it can run fabrics. And it fits. So some of those pieces, like you're saying, I can buy bobbins and any of that. But I had my modern machine service at the sewing center, because they have like one in Berkeley, there's a bunch around town, and they said did have someone who could do the Kenmore.
Good to know. Question there, and we'll get to you.
This seems for really anybody. So in this hypothetical situation, if say I've never sewed a day in my life, and I also am poor, is there a good sewing machine that you think would be a good idea for starters? That would still
the same basic old Kenmores, if it goes forward, backwards, zigzag, maybe a blind stitch and a buttonhole. That's all you need. And most sewing machines, the older Singers, the older Brothers, the older Kenmores will do that. Yeah, question answer.
Oh shoot, I just back to me, sorry, I
Okay,
forgot.
yeah.
This is actually to answer your question. Also, the textile center, they like to sell sewing machines as well.
Oh, yeah. Okay, anybody got the time? Because we're kind of going.
We are,
1 minute. Oh, gee, and I'm only on like 5.
They're usually fairly cheap.
Awesome, thank you. Let me see, I've got, well, if you want to just come up and take a look at my examples here of things like stitches, French seams, clipping, interfacing, corsets. Mostly, and I should have brought my damn business cards. What I can do is post this online and you can just download the file. Hooks and eyes, hems. Man, we really talked a lot tonight. Do we have anybody else scheduled in here afterward? Can anybody look at a schedule?
There's a Minecraft test panel in half an hour.
Okay.
Do we want to squeeze another 15 minutes out of here?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, okay, sewing, stitches. Flat fell seam is the strongest, especially like if you're out at Renfest and you're living in your clothes all day long. Granted, it's not exactly a historically period. Oh, yeah, it is a stitch. Take a look at the outside seam of your blue jeans. That's a flat fell stitch, and that's the sturdiest one. If you're ripping your blue jeans, you're not ripping them at that seam, you're ripping them within the fabric itself. A French seam, especially if you have transparent materials. Here we go, we're gonna pass that one around. That one gives examples of the seams. That is good for enclosing, especially with translucent materials. They tend to fray a lot, but you don't want your seams to fray and come apart. Yellow.
I'm worried she's gonna forget her question.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I just remembered, yeah, thank you, appreciate it. Are there any classes around the Twin Cities that you recommend taking? Like, I know Joanne's has like a basic sewing kind of thing where you pay a little bit and then go take that class?
Kind of, yeah. Unfortunately, there's not a lot, they stop sewing in school, which is a sin.
Also, that's
Really. There's good online ones. There's a online company, whatever, called Threads. And that has some incredibly, exceptionally good tutorials. And they take it down, small bite size. This is how you do this seam. This is how you do that seam.
Threads plural?
Threads. What?
Knit and bolt? Has classes? Knit and bolt.
Knit
Knit and bolt. Okay, that one I haven't heard of. But Threads is the one that I use. I get their magazine. I kind of forgot how to do this one. I will go in and they have like every technique ever invented in sewing online. And they're a very good reference for starting. They have basic sewing, hot couture, how to sew silks, how to sew this, whatever.
Bernadette Banner has a really excellent basics of sewing book. Make, mend, repair.
Oh, yeah, Singer also has a bunch of, how to sew sort of things.
And her thing is mostly hand sewing, so I think I'll put that out there.
Which is a dime now.
Another option is local theaters. Theater in the Round will teach you to sew if you'll help them do alterations on some of their shows.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, Francine, work your garment flat as much as you can first. Sew all of your side seams together before you put the shoulder seam in. Because that way it's easier to steam open your seams, to add your trims on the bottoms if you need to, or any fancy stuff, appliques, whatever. Do it flat. Trim and clip. How often is it bunched around, especially around the armholes, if you don't trim and clip? Here we go, there's stuff up there. Sergers, use those when you're absolutely sure of the size, because they sew, they trim, and they overcast all at once, and that's it. If you've made a mistake, it's too late to correct it. One little trick I do is I have a tendency to make my costumes a little too tight. Cut your seam allowance 5/8 inches, but only sew the seam allowance 1/2 inch. Because that way you'll have enough. If you have like 4 seams, you'll have 1 or 2 inches of ease, so your garment isn't quite so tight. Interfacing is good for stiffening up things and for parts that are going to have need a little more stiffness, especially around the front, underneath the buttonholes. Backing buttons and snaps with other fabric or other buttons is a good way. So, if you've got some hard use on that coat and you're pulling the button, you're not pulling the button through the fabric. Back it with another littler button and that'll distribute the weight. Corseting, Oh yeah, corsetine, it can be very expensive with the pieces. Cheap corsetine, go into a hardware store and get heavy-duty zip ties and glue 2 or 3 of them together. It's still flexible, but you can cut them to exactly the length you want, and you don't have to worry about those sharp edges poking you. So zip ties are rather good for, cheap and easy corsetine. Stiffen, when you see a ball gown, it kind of floats out away from the legs. It's because horsehair in the hem stiffens it and keeps it away from your legs, so you're not tripping it and it's not winding around your legs a lot. Shoulder pads, of course. A lot of your garments will hang from the shoulders, but most patterns are kind of like this. Our shoulders are like this. So you put shoulder pads in to pull this up and make it smoother right here. Question?
Unless you have football shoulders, in which case you want to take them out.
Yeah.
They make excellent scissor cases. You sew the shoulder pads together, put a zip, little half moon, put a zipper on the top, and you have a scissors case that your scissors will not puncture.
Oh, that's a neat idea. That's cool. That's cool. Okay, let's see, shoulder pads, zippers. Invisible zippers are your friend and your enemy. Try to do a superhero outfit with a zipper down the back. No. But invisible zippers are great. We did a Jack Skellington on a very tall, skinny kid, and we wanted to make him look absolutely emaciated. So we sewed the costume so tight that it was skin tight. But then, of course, he couldn't sit down. So we put invisible zippers in the arms and the legs, so that when he sat, he could loosen them up a little bit to sit down. But when he stood up, he zipped them, and it was skin tight. Problem is, invisible zippers are not strong. So if you're putting any sort of stress on them, they will pop. One thing to do, invisible zipper down the back to take a bit of stress off, put a hook and eye at the top and at the waist. And that will take the punishment, the urge, the tendency of the costume to pull apart at the center back. Question?
So a friend of mine that strips and needs a zipper replaced on their cute little plastic corset.
Mm-hmm.
How would you even go about doing that? Like, would you change?
You pretty much have to take the zipper out. Or there are some zipper repair kits online. So you can finagle the bottom part of it and replace the pull, the zipper pull on it. I'm not very good at it.
Would you at that point change the type of closure, or would you just stick with the zipper and change it out?
I usually change it out, but then I put a reinforcing hook and eye or a snap or something behind it just to take the stress off the zipper. Velcro is fun, but one, it's lumpy, and two, it gets clogged. I have to take my seam ripper or a comb and go through the Velcro frequently to pull all of the gunk out. Stitch Witch is another one that, it stops the fray, but then when you stitch through it, it gunks up your needle. You want to finish your seams, pinking shears, zigzagging actually prevents fray check. Fray check is another one, good for preventing fraying, but gunks up your needle. Hemming, especially if you're going for competition, no, don't do the safety pin duct tape hem. I've seen that when I've been judging. I've seen that. No, it doesn't quite work. Simple thing. Turn it over twice and top stitch. Most people aren't going to come up to you and look, oh, what an awful hem you did. And on stage, nobody can see it, nobody will care. Bias tape is great, especially if you've got a very curvy edge that you want to finish off, like a sleeveless top. Put a bias tape on, turn it over, top stitch it. Hand hem, of course, if you're getting really OCD like I do when it comes to hem, doing that. Trick is in any, even top stitching, a hem. Do maybe 6 inches and back stitch. 6 inches and back stitch. Because that way, when you put your foot through your hem, and you usually will, it doesn't pull the entire hem out. Do a little tap, tap, tap every few inches on your hems. Facings and linings add to the sturdiness and the life of the garment. It absorbs the sweat. Easy way to finish off the seams. Okay, cleaning, maintenance, natural fabrics washed and dried. Fursuits, metallic materials. Turn them inside out, spray them with vodka. And hang them in the sunshine. That deodorizes. This is an old theater trick, the vodka spray.
Would isopropyl alcohol work also?
It can, yeah, it can. You have to be kind of careful that you don't want to spray it on something that might stain a little bit or spot. Put crunched up newspapers in your shoes overnight. Because, some of these boots, some of these high heel shoes, stuff like that can get pretty sweaty. Rolled newspapers and tall boots will keep them tall and not crunchy at the ankle. Treat your spots and stains as much as you can, as soon as you can. When you're ironing, use a silicone mat. Like I said, the girl who ironed her outfit and the iron sunk right through the synthetic material. It stops, it'll get warmer before it starts scorching, and it'll be the silicone mat that'll take the heat. Use pressing hams and sleeve to press an inside seam so it won't show on the outside. Because you iron something in there, you can see the flat fell seam, you can see the edge of the seam allowance when you see it. So turn it inside out and sew it on a curve, press it on a curve, and then that way your seams won't show. Bring a repair kit. And one final thing, you're going to put a lot of yourself into your outfit, including blood. At one point or other, you're going to either cut yourself or poke yourself, and you're going to bleed into that outfit. Oh God, it's ruined. No, spit on it. What? Spit on it. If you put bleed, your spit will dissolve that blood. Nobody else's will. You can't, somebody can't bleed and you can't spit on it. But if there's some drops of blood in there, very carefully spit on it and then just kind of rinse it out. And it works. I don't know how many times I've done that. For a few minutes, quick question?
I mean, if you don't get to it right away.
Yes, oh God, yes.
I think peroxide too.
That can do it. Depends. The synthetics will kind of stain a little bit. You'll get this ring around your stain with like peroxides or stain removers or whatever. So when you're doing stain remover, do the outside first and work your way in. That way it won't spread like that.
Remember that blood is protein, and heat will set that protein stain. You need to use cool and cold.
If you bleed a lot over it, rinse it out in cold water. I have other quick little examples here if you want to see some of this stuff. What time have we got?
One more round.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, we better scoot.
Thank you so much, though. Thank you.